I held my phone to my ear, sitting in the dead center of my living room. My 3 children were dragging their suitcases out the front door. The heavy, metallic clatter of the wheels bounced off the hardwood floors. My daughter Tessa paused in the entryway. She didn't look at me. She looked at her phone. "We're not wasting time on a fading old woman," she sneered to her brothers. "The estate broker needs the keys by Tuesday." They didn't even leave a glass of water on my nightstand. The heavy oak door clicked shut. Exactly 20 minutes after their cars pulled out of the driveway, my phone vibrated in my hand. It was my oncologist. He assumed dying people stop fighting. He was wrong. I had spent my entire adult life financing their illusions. I paid for Tessa's destination wedding in Milan. I covered the $200,000 down payment on Holden's architectural modern home. I quietly cleared Dashiell's gambling debts so his wife wouldn't leave him. 3 children, 3 bottomless pits of entitlement. I was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer on a Tuesday. The doctor gave me 3 months to live. My children arrived exactly 4 days later. They didn't come to comfort me. They came to inventory the house. I remember sitting on the velvet sofa, completely numb from the diagnosis. I watched Dashiell slowly open the glass doors of my antique china cabinet. He was checking the silver hallmarks. He was calculating the auction value while I was still breathing in the same room. Holden asked for my biometric safe code under the guise of keeping my jewelry secure. Tessa complained about the smell of the house. Then, 20 minutes after they abandoned me to die, Dr. Evans called. The room was completely silent. The hum of the refrigerator echoed in the kitchen. "Eleanor," the doctor said, his voice shaking slightly. "There has been a catastrophic clerical error at the lab. Your biopsy was switched with another patient's." I didn't breathe. "You don't have cancer," he said. "You have a severe but entirely treatable benign stricture. You are going to live." I hung up the phone. I looked at the empty hallway. I looked at the scuff marks their luggage left on my pristine floors. The tears stopped immediately. The operational strategy began. If you've ever given everything to someone who was secretly taking you apart, subscribe, because I'm about to show you exactly how to take your power back. I didn't call them. I didn't celebrate. I walked into my home office and locked the heavy oak door. I opened my laptop. I didn't need to hack into encrypted servers. I didn't need a Trojan horse. I just needed my master password to the family trust portal. I logged into the primary Vanguard dashboard. The screen illuminated my dark office. My children had not waited a single day. There was already a pending legal request submitted to the brokerage. They had uploaded a forged declaration of medical incapacitation. They used my initial cancer diagnosis to trigger the medical power of attorney. They were actively attempting to liquidate my $5 million primary portfolio and route the cash into 3 separate offshore holding accounts. They started dividing my estate before I even got home from the clinic. I stared at the blinking cursor. My resting heart rate was perfectly stable. I couldn't feel my hands. But my mind was completely clear. I clicked on the property management tab. Tessa, Holden, and Dashiell all lived in multi-million-dollar homes. They paid no rent. They paid no mortgages. They assumed those homes belonged to them. They forgot one absolute, unarguable fact. I held the master deeds. The properties were in my name, nested under my revocable living trust. They were pre-inheritance gifts, and a revocable trust can be revoked. I picked up my phone and dialed my estate attorney, Arthur Vance. "Arthur," I said, my voice dropping to a flat, clinical whisper. "Freeze every single asset. Now." I spent the next 30 days as a ghost. I let my children believe I was decaying in a private hospice facility. I paid a private nurse to answer my phone and tell them I was too weak to speak. They never tried to visit. Instead, they texted the nurse asking for my banking PIN numbers so they could handle the medical bills. I sat in Arthur's mahogany-paneled law office, watching the digital requests roll in. I needed to give them a false victory. I needed them to feel completely safe. Holden texted my personal number. Mom, the insurance company needs the master combination to the floor safe to underwrite the jewelry policy. I love you. Rest easy. I watched the text bubble hover on the screen. I typed my reply. 1409. I love you too. I hit send. I knew exactly what he was going to do. The floor safe was in my master bedroom. By giving him the code, he believed he had bypassed probate. He didn't know I had hired a private security firm the night they left. I had already emptied the safe. I removed the heirloom diamonds, the bearer bonds, and the gold reserves. I replaced them with thick, heavy stacks of blank printer paper. At exactly 2 a.m, my phone vibrated. The silent security cameras I installed in my own bedroom pinged my device. I watched the live infrared feed in absolute darkness. Holden and Tessa crept into my bedroom. They looked like thieves. They kneeled on the carpet and eagerly spun the dial on the safe. The heavy steel door clicked open. I watched Tessa reach inside. I watched her pull out a stack of blank, worthless paper. I watched Holden physically collapse against the footboard of my bed in sheer panic. They frantically searched the empty steel box. They thought they had been robbed. They had no idea I was sitting in a luxury hotel suite 3 miles away, drinking chamomile tea, watching them tear my house apart. That was just the bait. The real trap was still loading. Before I show you the exact document that destroyed their entire empire, make sure you hit subscribe. You do not want to miss how this ends. Arthur Vance filed the paperwork the next morning. I executed a unilateral revocation of their beneficiary status. I removed Tessa, Holden, and Dashiell from the living trust. I stripped their medical power of attorney. I permanently dissolved their financial access. I transferred the entire $5 million liquid estate to a pediatric cancer research foundation. Then, I dealt with their houses. I signed 3 separate quitclaim deeds. I legally transferred the titles of the 3 homes they currently occupied out of the trust and directly back into my sole, private ownership. I was no longer their mother. I was their landlord. 30 days after my fake diagnosis, Arthur's office sent formal legal summons to my 3 children. The email subject line read, "Final execution of the Kingsley estate." They thought I was dead. They thought this was the final reading of the will. I arrived at the law firm an hour early. The conference room was massive. The walls were lined with heavy leather books. I sat in the high-backed leather chair at the absolute head of the mahogany table. I turned the chair completely around so I was facing the floor-to-ceiling windows. I waited. At exactly 10 a.m, the heavy glass doors opened. My 3 children walked in. They were dressed in high-end, designer black clothing. They were playing the role of grieving heirs perfectly. Holden checked his Rolex. Tessa carried an empty designer tote bag, ready to collect the physical documents to her new wealth. "We're ready to proceed, Arthur," Dashiell said, his voice dripping with arrogant impatience. "Let's get this liquidated quickly." Arthur stood perfectly still at the edge of the table. He didn't say a word. He simply looked at the back of my chair. I placed my hands on the leather armrests. I slowly turned the chair around. The color vanished from Tessa's face. She physically stumbled backward, her high heel catching on the carpet. Holden's jaw went completely slack. His eyes widened in absolute terror. Dashiell stopped breathing. They were looking at a ghost. A very healthy, very angry ghost. "Sit down," I said. My voice was dead. It carried 0 maternal warmth. It was the voice of an executioner. None of them moved. They were entirely paralyzed by the shock of my survival. I said, "Sit down." They slowly sank into the leather chairs opposite me. Tessa's hands were shaking so violently she had to grip the edge of the table to steady herself. "Mom," Holden stammered, his throat tightening. "We thought, the hospital said—" "The hospital made a mistake," I interrupted smoothly. "But you didn't. You made your intentions perfectly clear." I reached into my briefcase. I pulled out 3 thick manila folders. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't ask them why they abandoned me. I just slid the first folder across the polished mahogany table to Tessa. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Open it," I commanded. She opened the folder. Sitting on top was the digital log of her forged medical incapacitation filing, complete with the exact timestamp from the Vanguard portal. Underneath that was a crisp, legally certified document. It was a 30-day eviction notice for her home. I slid the second folder to Holden, then the third to Dashiell. Holden opened his file. He saw the high-resolution screenshots from my bedroom security camera. He saw himself kneeling in front of my safe at 2 a.m. Then, he saw his own eviction notice. "You don't own those houses," I said quietly. The silence in the room was suffocating. "I hold the master deeds. As of this morning, your leases have been permanently terminated. You have exactly 30 days to vacate my properties." Dashiell tried to stand up. His face was flushed red with panic. "You can't do this!" he shouted, his mask completely slipping. "That's our money! That's our inheritance!" "It was your inheritance," I corrected him, leaning forward slightly. "Now, it is a pediatric cancer research fund." Tessa started to cry, real, panicked tears. "Mom, please," she begged. "We're your children. We didn't mean to leave you. We were overwhelmed." I looked at her. I thought about the metallic zip of the suitcases. I thought about her voice in the hallway. "We're not wasting time on a fading old woman," I quoted back to her. Tessa closed her eyes. A quiet sob escaped her throat. "The meeting is over," I said. I stood up. I buttoned my tailored coat. I didn't look back as I walked out of the conference room. I left them sitting in the dead silence of their own ruin. They thought my fading health made me powerless. They forgot that the one who holds the pen writes the will. Even today, I pause before signing anything. I look at the ink on the paper, and I remember the exact cost of unconditional love. If you found this satisfying, subscribe. There are a lot of predators out there, and they all leave a digital footprint.